So this is Theory Series episode 9, but for this Theory Series I'm going to end up doing something different because um, this is something that has taken me about 5 years to gain a complete understanding on. Um, for a long time, I've been trying to find a way to merge science and spirituality together, right? Because I'm on this spiritual journey. I use psychedelics to learn, to gain knowledge, and to gain access into a world that's unseen, the unseen, right? A world that the two eyes can't see, but the third eye can. And that for a lot of times spirituality does not mix with science, right? Because for a lot of times the church was holding science back for a long time. This isn't religious. My beliefs are not religious. um, I have a self-taught modern day shamanistic belief from my personal experiences with DMT.
Just DMT stands for dimethyltryptamine, NN-dimethyltryptamine. If you actually look at the ring structure of DMT itself, you only have really 4 positions that you can attach things to. So you can make diethyl or dipropyl. There are some other types of carbon chains you can attach to that end that do give you compounds that have activity, but very different from DMT.
It started seeming to me that what was happening with DMT, particularly with respect to some of these reports of entering parallel or alternate or freestanding parallel sorts of realms of existences, that indeed was what their consciousness was doing.
It's the brain that helps us to process all this information and to create for us a rendition of what our world is all about. But we're trapped within that brain. However, in spiritual experiences where people feel that they get beyond the self, in certain types of psychedelic experiences where you have incredible sensory and other types of phenomena, people really feel like they are able to kind of get outside of their brain. We have to take a very big look at what is going on within them when they have the experience and try to understand how it happens physiologically and try to make sense of it from the subjective perspective as well as from the objective perspective. I don't think you can just say, let's just explain it away on the basis of science.
Me and my friend Twiz were diving with DMT in like 2014, 2015. And we did hundreds of experiences together. Hundreds of experiences, and we're trying to map out DMT space. Now, I made a video about mapping out DMT space based on 200 breakthroughs. All those places you're passing that you're seeing flashing before your eyes, like while you're going warp speed, I guarantee those are all the things that you would see on sub breakthroughs. Those are all the little places for the sub breakthroughs. I don't really see the vortex anymore. And this is what I mean by DMT space is evolving possibly. The shamans say the plants are their teachers. DMT is my teacher. There's the City of Light. And past the City of Light is another vortex basically, but in that City of Light I think that's where we go when we die, if you're allowed to stay there. I think that's where we go. That video was like me trying to explain what I didn't fully understand yet, right? And I'm not saying I fully understand it because there's still a lot I don't know. That's why a lot of this is like I labeled one of the things called it because I have no fucking clue. But and another one of these things on here is called something else because I have no clue what that is either. But I'm just going to show you guys this and then explain some more. I'm horrible at art. There'd be a lot of color and geometrical patterns and shapes and fucking vortexes and... Yeah, there'd be a lot of shit in here. Just because I have personal experiences with DMT, I don't want this to sound complete what nowadays people say woo-woo. So, what I'm trying to do is bridge the two. make a yin and yang balance with each other, right? So I created this diagram to basically explain that E8 is the matrix.
I want to tell you about the universe. How it came to be, what its building blocks are.
This is a diagram, and I'm going to title this basically E8 is the matrix, but this is much bigger than E8. But right now, the biggest thing in science is E8, so we're going to talk about E8. A lot of people are probably asking what exactly E8 is, and E8 is basically this, they can explain. This is Quantum Gravity Research. This is their YouTube channel. I'm not in any way affiliated with them in any way. I've never even commented on their videos, to be honest. But I've learned a lot from their videos. You know, they can teach you some things about quantum physics. And to people that are not really into quantum physics or quantum mechanics, or it's hard to follow, start with this video. Because this is the video that is going to be, I'm going to have clips of this video in my video, so, yeah.
So, in this movie, I want to tell you about a particular geometric shape. Actually, it's not so much a shape, it's really more a structure. An 8-dimensional lattice, known simply and mysteriously as E8.
For some reason, this 8-dimensional thing, known as E8, appears to encode all of the particles and forces of our 3-dimensional reality. So, let's talk about what E8 actually is. And what it is actually pretty simple.
For reals.
Imagine circles, all of them the same size. We draw them on a piece of paper stacked in the densest possible way that one can stack circles of the same size.
This happens to be called hexagonal packing, by the way.
Now, let's put a little point in the center of every one of these circles. And now, let's get rid of the circles and leave only their center points. So now, we have something called a point space. This point space is one that represents the densest packing of 2-dimensional circles of the same size, right? Now, let's talk about the densest packing of 3D circles, or spheres. Again, all of them of the exact same size. P.S. We're totally pretending that these oranges are perfect spheres of the exact same size. So, the densest packing of 3D spheres is actually pretty intuitive to us. It's how we pack oranges in the supermarket.
Now let's add points in the centers of all of our spheres while they're in this dense arrangement. And again, let's get rid of all of the spheres and keep only the points that represent their centers. Okay, so now we're left with the point space representing the densest packing of 3-dimensional spheres. So far, so good, right? Y'all with me? Okay, so E8 is the point space representing the densest packing of 8D spheres.
This is why it's taken me 5 years to get this understanding, because I've watched hundreds of DMT experiences. I've listened to hundreds of people talk about their psychedelic experiences. I've listened to shamans explain their life and how the shamans already knew dimensions. Like, the shamans already knew there were other dimensions thousands of years ago, long before we did. Why? The same reason why I have this understanding, right? I've just looked at it from both perspectives. Shamans usually look at it from their perspective, science usually looks at it from their perspective, and nobody wants to look at each other, right? I'm just someone who was born and raised in the Western world, but I have always felt this calling to what I do, right? What I do is I use plants and herbs and psychedelics to connect with what I would call my God, but to also learn to travel dimensions. A lot of people don't like to say that DMT can take you to another place. I think it can. Let's just start. I was going to start from the bottom down, but I'm going to start from the top up. Okay, because this is what I think what it's like. Okay? Right here says it, and it says D11. I feel like it is in D11, and what it is it. God, creation, Terrence McKenna would say the attractor at the end of time. Now, it is these lines that are going down, okay? Excuse my horrible drawing, but these lines that are going down is it projecting itself into these lower dimensions, okay? The creator can project itself into something where it's a little more physical-like, still made of light, still not physical, because I feel like the 3D realm is the only place that's physical. Every other place is basically made of light in a way. But it's like, but not really, but that's what we perceive it as because we're 3D beings, right? Okay, so it projects itself in the 10th dimension, then 9th dimension. Okay, now in the 9th dimension, it splits itself into two. These two are creators. You can call them yin and yang, or male and female energies, consciousness, whatever, right? It's also what we mistake as good and bad of the realities that we live in. Now you can say from another perspective, you can say that it, instead of just projecting itself into these things, you can say that the lowest dimension, and you can say that everything is just a shadow of it.
But there's a deep connection between the 2D object on the sand and the 3D mother crystal. This distorted 2D pattern is called a quasi-crystal. A quasi-crystal in a certain dimension, in this case 2D, is a projection of a crystal in a higher dimension, in this case 3D.
A group of physicists in Los Angeles is working on a new physics theory.
Or a particular 8D crystal, yep, that's right, an 8-dimensional crystal, is projected to 4D at a very particular angle, which forms a 4D quasi-crystal. And from this 4D quasi-crystal,
They derive a 3D quasi-crystal, which they believe is the fundamental substructure of all of reality.
This 3D quasi-crystal has a fundamental building block, a tetrahedron, which is a 3-dimensional equilateral triangle.
So you know how your TV screen is broken down into building blocks called pixels? A pixel is the smallest possible indivisible unit of the 2D screen. So think of reality as your TV screen, but in 3D. And think of the tetrahedron as a 3D pixel, the smallest possible indivisible unit of reality.
the tetrahedra in the quasi-crystal combine with other tetrahedra using complex mathematical rules to fill up all of the space in the universe. Each tetrahedron only has a few specific states in which it can exist at any given moment.
And because of the rules of how these pixels connect to each other, if one tetrahedron is in a certain state, this dictates the states of many other tetrahedra throughout all of space. If a certain tetrahedron can be in any one of just a few possible states in a given moment, who or what chooses the state it should be in at any given moment?
Well, for such a choice to be made, we need to scientifically, mathematically, and logically bring in a new element into physics. And that element is consciousness.
We're consciousness that has manifested into a body, right? And that now I'm talking. We're it that has manifested into a body that's talking, right? Because it is projecting itself into the lower dimensions, okay? The real game begins in the 9th dimension. And then the real game begins in the 8th dimension. Because from these beings right here, I say beings, creators, gods, whatever the fuck they are, it's coming from, it's all it, but these are projecting themselves into this, and this is E8. Now, I have a horrible drawing of E8. It's just this circle thing, right? I cannot draw worth a damn. So imagine that's E8, okay? Now, E8, and imagine all these lines, right, are dimensions. So, E8. Now, inside of E8, E8 is this matrix machine. It's this machine that is holding the matrix game thing together. And it's almost like this game thing is a video game to get us ready to become it again. Okay? So, we're in the third. So, if you work your way down, you go projected from here down into the 7th dimension. Now, 8th dimension is not, it's a thing where you can observe. It's actually the machine itself, right? 7th dimension, I feel like it's possible beings could live there. Now, the 5th dimension, okay, I wrote down right here, I wrote down for the 5th dimension, 5D, okay, I wrote down city or heaven, okay? So I feel like that is what a lot of people mistake as heaven, because I think that is where DMT a lot of times takes you, and like you'll fly through the vortex, and I feel like the vortex is basically you're going from the 3rd dimension through the vortex, which takes you through the 4th, into the 5th, or into the, 6th, and there's a second vortex as well, and the second vortex is when you hit E8. When you hit E8, you can also, but to get through E8, the second vortex, now, there's this guy in Rick Strassman's studies with DMT who talked about, now I've experienced this, that's why I resonate with this the most. So I would be ripped from, in order to go through this other vortex, you end up getting your humanity ripped from you, right? So what makes you a human being ends up being taken from you layer by layer, shredded, piece by piece.
More and more layers of my humanity start peeling off. Finally, the last, almost the last layer, and I can't even describe what it is, but you have, at some reaches way in there, there is like the last layer of that which defines you as a human being, and it goes, you are no longer a human being. In fact, you're no longer anything you can identify.
When that happens, I feel like that's what it takes to get ripped out of reality, right, and into this part, in order to become that again. All the memory gets erased, right, when you leave the E8 matrix. Because, now I think you can get it back, but I think that's just what happens, because then you travel down even farther, you get to the 4th, and you get to the 3rd, and the 3rd is where we are right now, right, in baseline consciousness. So a lot of this can be explained, this would be considered woo-woo, right, but a lot of times I feel like this can be explained now with quantum physics and quantum mechanics, because quantum mechanics is now explaining, quantum physics is now explaining that E8 is like this, is like our dimension is a shadow of the 4th dimension, which is a shadow of the 5th, which is a shadow of the 6th, 7th, and which is all just a shadow of E8. Because they're saying within every atom, within every molecule, they keep looking deeper and deeper. They see quarks and whatever. They're saying that the quarks and the neutrons, electrons, and protons are just little pieces of E8 that we're seeing, right? And I definitely can agree. I agree with that 100%. And then over here I put something else, because that's something else. I feel like that's like a little, it's like separate from all of this, but it's still part of this, but I don't know what it is. And I feel like I've been there on DMT, but it feels like I'm stuck. And I don't know how to explain it. But, yeah. This is the video though, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching this. I really do appreciate it. This is really deep. I'll get more videos where I explain it more, but when I have more space on my camera. But thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, deep.
A universal collective consciousness is one answer, but that sounds new age and religious. Now, nowadays, a good number of physicists discuss the idea that our whole universe is actually a code-based simulation in some fantastically powerful quantum computer in another universe. Now, if true, then by the same logic, that other universe where the computer running the simulation of our universe is would also supposedly be a simulation in another universe. So the idea is a little shaky, but it's being discussed seriously by a lot of credible people. But it turns out that a universal collective-like consciousness of some sort may be physically inevitable.